Mom, we don't need your advice anymore. Those words hit me like ice water. I froze mid-step in my own kitchen, coffee mug trembling in my hand. Daniel, my eldest son, stood by the counter looking anywhere but at me. What did you just say? I whispered. He shrugged, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it. I said we don't need your advice. Dad's handling everything now. We've got it under control. 25 years. 25 years I'd balanced every account, paid every bill, caught every financial mistake before it became a disaster. And now my own son was dismissing me like I was some outdated software they'd finally decided to uninstall. I wanted to argue, to remind him who kept this family afloat when his father forgot to pay the mortgage, who stretched every dollar when money was tight, who built the credit score that gave us options when we had none. But I didn't say any of that. I just stood there, letting his words sink deeper and deeper until they settled cold and heavy in my chest. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't possibly imagine, was that 3 days later my phone would ring with a call that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. The bank manager's voice would be calm and professional, but his question would turn my entire world upside down. For 3 days I moved through the house like a ghost. Daniel avoided me completely, leaving early for work and coming home late. My husband Vincent acted normal, too normal, humming while he made coffee, asking about my day like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I'd spent decades being the backbone of this family, the one who fixed problems before anyone else even noticed them, the one who kept us stable while everyone else got to be careless. And now they'd decided I was unnecessary. I sat at my desk that third night staring at the stack of bills and financial statements I'd always managed. My hands shook slightly as I reached for the folder marked family accounts. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then something made me pick up. Mrs. Harper. A man's voice, professional and careful. This is Warren Mitchell from First National Bank. I'm calling about the loan release that requires your signature. My stomach dropped. What loan? I asked slowly. Silence on the other end. Then he spoke again, more carefully this time. The family investment loan. Your husband submitted the application 3 weeks ago. We just need your authorization signature to release the funds. My hands went completely numb. I'd never authorized any loan. Warren's voice continued, calm and methodical, explaining details that made no sense. A loan application. A property investment. My name listed as co-signer. I never signed anything, I said, my voice barely steady. Another pause. Mrs. Harper, we have your digital signature on file. The authorization was submitted through your email account on March 15th at 2:13 in the morning. March 15th. I'd been asleep that night. I need you to send me copies of everything immediately, I said. Every document, every signature, every email. Warren hesitated. That's highly irregular, Mrs. Harper. Your husband assured us this was a joint family decision. Send me the documents, I repeated firmly, or I'm coming to the bank first thing tomorrow morning. He must have heard something in my voice because he agreed. 5 minutes later, my email dinged. I opened the attachment with trembling fingers. Page after page of loan documents appeared on my screen. Property investment loan for $270,000. My signature at the bottom of each page. But I had never, ever signed them. Someone in my family had forged my authorization. Someone had used my financial reputation, my credit history, my name, to secure a massive loan without my knowledge. And suddenly Daniel's words took on a completely different meaning. We don't need your advice anymore. They didn't need my advice. They just needed my name. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my computer going through every document Warren had sent me. The loan amount was staggering. Nearly 3 times our original mortgage. The application listed a property investment as the purpose. What property? What investment? Vincent had never mentioned anything like this to me. I pulled up our joint email account and started searching. It didn't take long to find the thread. Emails between Vincent and someone named Preston Cole. Investment opportunity, significant returns, partners ready to move forward. My hands clenched into fists. Vincent had been planning this for months. Every email was dated, time-stamped, tracked. He'd been communicating with these partners while I cooked dinner, while I managed our household finances, while I kept everything running smoothly like I always had. And he'd never said a single word to me. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. An email from Vincent to Preston, dated 2 weeks ago. Don't worry about Jolene. I'll handle the authorization. She trusts me with the passwords. My breathing became shallow. He'd logged into my email account. He'd forged my signature, and he'd done it believing I would never find out. Or maybe worse, believing I wouldn't do anything about it even if I did. The next morning I dressed carefully, professional, composed, in control. I didn't confront Vincent at breakfast. Instead, I watched him eat his toast and scroll through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. Going anywhere today? I asked casually. He barely looked up. Meeting with some business associates. Might be late. Business associates. The partners he'd committed us to without my knowledge. Sounds important, I said smoothly. He just nodded. After he left, I sat in the silence of our empty house. 25 years of marriage. 25 years of trust. And he'd thrown it away for a property investment I knew nothing about. I picked up my phone and called Warren at the bank. I need to freeze the loan, I said when he answered. Mrs. Harper, that's going to require. I need to freeze it immediately, I interrupted. I did not authorize this loan. My signature was forged. Dead silence. Then Warren's voice came back, much more serious now. That's a very serious allegation, Mrs. Harper. It's not an allegation, I said calmly. It's the truth, and I'm prepared to prove it. Another pause. I'll need you to come to the bank this afternoon. Bring identification and any documentation you have. I hung up and stayed at the wall. Vincent thought he'd outmaneuvered me. He had no idea what was coming. At the bank, Warren led me to a private office. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with careful eyes that studied me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Walk me through this, Mrs. Harper, he said. I laid out everything methodically. The timeline, the forged signatures, the emails I'd found, the fact that I'd been asleep when the authorization was supposedly submitted. Warren listened without interrupting. Then he pulled up his computer screen. The loan application was flagged internally, he admitted. The amount requested is unusually large compared to your household income. That's why we required dual authorization. Which my husband provided by forging my signature, I said. Warren nodded slowly. If what you're saying is true, this is fraud. We'll need to conduct a full investigation. How long will that take? I asked. At least 2 weeks, maybe longer. I leaned forward, and in the meantime, the loan is frozen. Yes, no funds can be released without verified dual authorization. Relief washed through me. There's something else you should know, Mrs. Harper, Warren said quietly. My stomach tightened again. What? He turned his screen toward me. The partners your husband is working with. We ran background checks, a standard procedure. I looked at the names on the screen. Preston Cole, and someone named Malcolm Reeves. What about them? I asked. Warren's expression darkened. One has a history of failed developments. The other is currently under investigation for financial fraud. I drove home in a daze. Preston Cole, Malcolm Reeves, one a serial failure, the other potentially a criminal. And Vincent had tied our family's entire financial future to them. If I had signed that loan, if I had trusted Vincent blindly like I'd done for years, we would have been destroyed. Our credit ruined. Our home at risk. Decades of careful financial management wiped out in a single investment scheme. When I pulled into the driveway, Vincent's car was already there. I walked inside to find him in the kitchen, looking agitated. "Where were you?" he demanded. "Not how was your day, or everything okay?" Just immediate suspicion. "I had errands," I said calmly. He stared at me for a long moment. "The bank called me," he said finally. My heart rate increased, but I kept my face neutral. "Oh." "They said there's a problem with the loan authorization." I set my purse down slowly. "Is there?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Jolene, did you do something?" The audacity of that question almost made me laugh. "Did I do something?" "I spoke with the bank manager," I said evenly, "about the loan you applied for using my forged signature." His face went pale, then red, then something that looked almost like panic. "Jolene, I can explain." "Can you?" I interrupted. "Can you explain why you logged into my email at 2 in the morning to forge my authorization? Can you explain why you're partnering with people who have fraud investigations hanging over them?" Vincent's mouth opened and closed. "It's not what you think," Vincent said, his voice desperate now. I crossed my arms. "Then what is it, Vincent?" He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times when he was stressed. "Preston contacted me 6 months ago. He had this investment opportunity, property development. He said the returns would be incredible." 6 months, I repeated. "You've been planning this for 6 months and never mentioned it once." "I wanted to surprise you," he said weakly. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Surprise me with a $270,000 loan I knew nothing about. Surprise me with partners who are under investigation for fraud. Vincent flinched. I didn't know about Malcolm's background until recently. Preston assured me everything was legitimate. "And you believed him," I said flatly. "He had documents, projections. Everything looked professional." I stared at my husband of 25 years. "So instead of discussing it with me, the person who's managed our finances for our entire marriage, you decided to forge my signature and commit us to a loan that could destroy everything we've built." Vincent looked at the floor. "I thought if it worked, everyone would thank me. Daniel, the kids, you. I thought I could finally contribute something significant." That statement hit me harder than I expected. "Vincent, you've contributed plenty over the years. But this wasn't contribution. This was recklessness masked as ambition." He didn't respond. Because we both knew I was right. Daniel came home an hour later. He stopped short when he saw Vincent and Miss sitting at the kitchen table in tense silence. "What's going on?" he asked warily. I looked at my son. "Daniel, did you know about your father's investment loan?" He glanced at Vincent, then back at me. "Dad mentioned he was working on something. He said the bank had approved it." "Did he tell you how much the loan was for?" I asked. Daniel shook his head. I told him the amount. His eyes went wide. That can't be right." "It is," I said, "and your father forged my signature to get it approved." Daniel's face went through several emotions at once. Shock, disbelief, then slowly, understanding. "When you said we didn't need my advice anymore," I continued quietly, "did your father tell you to say that?" Daniel looked miserable. "He said you were being too cautious, that you'd never approve anything with real potential." I nodded slowly. "And the real reason he didn't want my advice was because I would have discovered his partners are criminals." Vincent shot to his feet. "They are not criminals." "One is under investigation for fraud," I said calmly. "Warren confirmed it." Daniel looked at his father with something like betrayal in his eyes. "Dad, what did you do?" Vincent slumped back into his chair. And for the first time, I saw him truly understand the magnitude of his mistake. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to Vincent's breathing beside me. He'd apologized multiple times throughout the evening. But apologies didn't undo fraud. They didn't erase the fact that he'd been willing to risk everything we'd built. My phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. A text from Daniel. "Mom, I'm sorry. I should have asked more questions. I typed back, "We'll figure this out." But would we? The loan was frozen, yes. But the damage to trust was something else entirely. I got out of bed quietly and went downstairs to my office. I pulled out every financial document I could find. Bank statements, investment accounts, mortgage papers, tax returns. For hours I went through everything, making sure there were no other surprises. That's when I found something odd. A credit card statement I didn't recognize. It was in Vincent's name, but I'd never seen it before. I opened it carefully. Charges dating back 8 months. Business dinners. Hotel rooms. Expenses that didn't match anything Vincent had told me about. My hands started shaking. This wasn't just about one bad investment decision. This was about an entire secret financial life I'd known nothing about. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. I didn't actually know my husband at all. The next morning I confronted Vincent with the credit card statement. He went pale when he saw it. "Where did you find that?" he asked. "That's your question," I said incredulously. "Not an explanation for why you have a secret credit card with 8 months of charges I know nothing about." Vincent sat down heavily. "I needed it for the investment," he said. "Meeting with Preston and Malcolm. Building the relationship. It's how business works." I looked at the charges more carefully. Business dinners at restaurants I've never heard of. Hotel stays in cities you never mentioned traveling to. "Vincent, what exactly have you been doing?" "Building connections," he insisted. "That's all." But his eyes wouldn't meet mine. I placed the statement on the table between us. "I want every password, every account, every piece of financial information you've been hiding." "Jolene." "Now," I said firmly. Something in my tone must have convinced him I wasn't playing games anymore. He pulled out his phone and started listing accounts. Another checking account I'd never known about. An investment app with risky trades. A line of credit he'd opened 6 months ago. Each revelation was like another crack in the foundation of our marriage. By the time he finished, I felt physically sick. "How much total?" I asked quietly. Vincent did some mental math. "Maybe 40,000 in debt." 40,000. On top of the $270,000 loan. I'd spent 25 years building our financial security. And in less than a year, he'd quietly dismantled it. Warren called me that afternoon. "Mrs. Harper, I have the results of our initial investigation." I gripped the phone tighter, and the digital signature on the loan documents was definitely submitted from your email account. But the IP address doesn't match your home network. My heart skipped. What does that mean? It means whoever submitted the authorization did it from somewhere else. Possibly Vincent's workplace or public Wi-Fi network. So he'd been careful. He hadn't just logged into my email from our home computer. He'd done it from somewhere else to avoid leaving an obvious trail. "There's more," Warren continued. "We've been in contact with Malcolm Reeves' previous business partners. The investment your husband was planning to join has several red flags. Such as, the property they're developing doesn't actually exist. At least not in the way they described it." I closed my eyes. "It's a scam." "We believe so, yes. If I had signed that loan, we would have sent $270,000 into a fraudulent scheme. We would have lost everything." "Mrs. Harper, I need to ask you something directly," Warren said carefully. "Do you want to pursue legal action against your husband for the forgery?" I sat in silence. Legal action against Vincent. That would mean police reports, potential charges, public exposure. It would destroy whatever was left of our family. "Not yet," I said finally. "But I want everything documented. Every piece of evidence preserved." "Understood." After I hung up, I sat staring at the wall. Vincent had been willing to risk everything. And now I had to decide how much I was willing to lose to hold him accountable. That evening, I called a family meeting. Vincent, Daniel, and my younger daughter Sophia all gathered in the living room. Sophia had no idea what was happening yet. I told them everything. The forged signatures, the fraudulent partners, the hidden debt, the fake investment scheme. Sophia's face went through shock, denial, then anger. "Dad, how could you do this?" she asked. Vincent looked broken. "I thought I was protecting the family, building something bigger. By lying to us." Sophia shot back. Daniel sat quietly, his head in his hands. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. "This is where we are financially," I said. "These are the debts Vincent accumulated. This is what we owe. And this is what we need to do to fix it." I'd spent the afternoon creating a recovery plan. Strict budget, debt consolidation, no unnecessary expenses. It would take years to recover, but we could do it, if everyone cooperated. "From now on," I said firmly, "every financial decision goes through me. No exceptions. No secret accounts. No hidden credit cards. Complete transparency." Vincent nodded weakly. "And Vincent," I continued, "you're going to get a second job. Whatever it takes to pay down this debt you created." He looked up at me, shame written across his face. "I will," he said quietly. Sophia spoke up. "What about the people Dad was working with? Preston and Malcolm?" "The bank is reporting them to authorities," I said. "That's not our concern anymore." What mattered now was salvaging what we had left and rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. Over the next 2 weeks, things slowly changed. Vincent started working weekend shifts at a retail job he'd found. It was humbling for him, I could tell, but it was necessary. Daniel came by the house more often, asking questions about the family finances, not because he didn't trust me anymore, but because he wanted to understand. One afternoon he sat with me at the kitchen table while I organized bills. "Mom, can you explain how credit works?" he asked. I looked at him carefully. "Why the sudden interest?" "Because I realized I'd been taking for granted that you'd always handle everything," he said. "And that was wrong." I smiled slightly. Credit is basically borrowed money with a promise to repay. We spent 2 hours going through the basics. How interest compounds. Why paying minimums keeps you in debt. The importance of credit scores. Things I'd tried to teach him years ago that he'd never paid attention to. But now he was listening. Really listening. When we finished, he looked at me seriously. "I'm sorry for what I said. About not needing your advice." "I know," I said gently. "Dad convinced me you were being overprotective. That we needed to take bigger risks." "Sometimes the biggest risk is not protecting what you already have," I replied. Daniel nodded slowly. "I get that now." It wasn't complete redemption, but it was a start. Warren called again a month later. "Mrs. Harper, I wanted to update you on the investigation." "Go ahead." "Preston Cole and Malcolm Reeves have been arrested. The investment scheme they were running affected 17 families total." My stomach turned. 17 families who had lost money. We could have been number 18. "What happens now?" I asked. "There's a possibility of recovering some funds through legal proceedings, but it will take time." "And the families who already lost money?" Warren was quiet for a moment. "Most of them are facing bankruptcy." I closed my eyes. That could have been us. If I had signed that loan, we would be joining them in financial ruin. "Mrs. Harper," Warren said carefully, "your refusal to authorize the loan likely saved your family from complete devastation." "I know. Does your husband understand that?" I looked across the room at Vincent, who was reading the newspaper, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen him. "I think he's starting to," I said. After I hung up, Vincent looked up. "Was that the bank?" "Yes. Preston and Malcolm were arrested." He set down the newspaper slowly. "How many people did they scam?" 17 families. Vincent's face went gray. For the first time, I think he truly understood how close we'd come to disaster, and how his arrogance had nearly destroyed everything. 3 months after the initial crisis, I sat down with our complete financial picture. Vincent's second job was helping. Slowly, painfully, we were chipping away at the debt. But it would take at least 2 years to fully recover. Daniel had taken over managing his own finances and was even helping Sophia learn budgeting basics. The family was healing. Not perfectly, not quickly, but healing nonetheless. One evening Vincent came home from his retail shift looking exhausted. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. "I need to say something," he said. I looked up from the budget spreadsheet. "What?" "I was angry at myself," he admitted. "For years you handled everything so competently. I felt useless, like my only purpose was to earn money you then managed." I hadn't expected that confession. "So you tried to prove yourself," I said quietly. "Yes, and I nearly destroyed us in the process." Vincent's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Jolene, for everything." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I know you are." "How do we come back from this?" he asked. I thought about that question carefully. "One day at a time," I said finally. "One honest conversation. One transparent decision. One choice to rebuild trust." He nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." And slowly, I was beginning to believe he meant it. 6 months later, Warren called with unexpected news. "Mrs. Harper, the fraud case has been resolved." Already. Preston and Malcolm both pleaded guilty. They are facing prison time, and the court has ordered restitution. My heart skipped. Restitution. They are liquidating assets to repay the families they defrauded. Your family is included on the victims list even though the loan wasn't released. Why? Because your husband paid expenses related to the scheme. Business dinners, meetings, travel costs. The court considers those losses. I calculated quickly. Vincent had spent maybe $8,000 on Preston and Malcolm. How much are we getting back? I asked. Approximately $12,000. More than Vincent had spent. It's not much in the grand scheme, Warren said, but it might help with your recovery. Help was an understatement. $12,000 would accelerate our debt payoff significantly. After I hung up, I told Vincent the news. He stared at me in disbelief. "We're getting money back." Yes. For the first time in months, I saw something like hope in his eyes. "Jolene, I don't deserve." "No," I interrupted gently. "You don't. But we're a family, and families help each other recover from mistakes." Vincent's voice cracked. "Thank you." I squeezed his hand, because sometimes love means holding people accountable, and sometimes it means offering grace when they are finally ready to change. The restitution money arrived 2 weeks later. I immediately applied it to our highest interest debt. Our financial recovery timeline shortened from 2 years to 14 months. Daniel came by that evening to celebrate the small victory. "Mom, I've been thinking," he said. "About what?" "About everything that happened. Dad's scheme, the forgery, all of it." I waited for him to continue. "You saved us," he said simply. "If you hadn't questioned the bank, if you'd just signed like Dad expected, we'd have lost everything." "I was protecting our family," I replied. "I know, and I'm sorry it took almost losing everything for me to appreciate that." Daniel pulled out his phone. "I've been tracking my own finances now, using an app, making sure I understand where every dollar goes." Pride swelled in my chest. "That's wonderful." "I want to be responsible like you," he said. "Not reckless like, well." He didn't finish, but we both knew what he meant. "Your father made mistakes," I said carefully, "but he's learning from them. That's what matters." Daniel nodded. "Do you think you'll ever fully trust him again?" I considered that question honestly. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm willing to let him earn it back. One decision at a time." That was the best answer I could give. Because trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. But with patience and consistent effort, it can be rebuilt. A year after the initial crisis, our debt was nearly eliminated. Vincent had kept his second job even after we could have managed without it. I want to build savings, he'd said. Real savings. Emergency funds. Concepts I'd been trying to teach him for years. Now he was finally listening. One Saturday morning, we sat together reviewing our finances. Complete transparency. Every account open. Every transaction visible. We're almost there, Vincent said, looking at the spreadsheet. Yes. I never want to go through that again, he said quietly. Then don't, I replied simply. He looked at me seriously. I mean it, Jolene. No more secrets. No more schemes. Just honest work and smart decisions. That's all I've ever wanted, I said. Vincent reached for my hand. I know I don't deserve it, but do you think you can forgive me? I thought about that question for a long time. Forgiveness wasn't forgetting. It wasn't pretending the betrayal hadn't happened. It was choosing to move forward despite the pain. I'm working on it, I said honestly. That was enough for now, because healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments, small choices, small victories that accumulate over time. And slowly, painfully, our family was finding its way back. 18 months after everything began, the final debt payment was made. We were completely free. No hidden credit cards. No secret loans. No schemes. Just clean, honest finances. Daniel and Sophia came over for dinner to celebrate. Vincent had cooked, something he rarely did before but had started doing more often. As we sat around the table, I looked at each face. My family wasn't perfect. We'd been broken and rebuilt, but we were stronger for it. I want to propose something, Vincent said. Everyone looked at him. I think we should have monthly family financial meetings. Everyone shares openly. No secrets. Daniel nodded immediately. I like that idea. Sophia agreed. I smiled. That sounds perfect. After dinner, Vincent and I stood on the back porch watching the sunset. Thank you for not giving up on me, he said quietly. Thank you for finally becoming the partner I always needed, I replied. He put his arm around me. I learned something through all of this. What's that? That the strongest person in our family was never me. It was always you. I leaned into him. We're stronger together, I said, when we're honest with each other. Vincent nodded. I won't forget that again. And this time, I believed him. 2 years after the crisis, Daniel called with exciting news. Mom, I just got promoted. Significant raise. That's wonderful. And I wanted to ask your advice about something. Those words meant more than he probably realized. What do you need help with? Investment options. I want to start building real wealth, but I want to do it right. I smiled. Come over this weekend. We'll go through everything. When Daniel arrived Saturday morning, he brought his laptop and notebooks. He was serious about this. We spent 3 hours discussing investment strategies, retirement accounts, index funds, risk tolerance, time horizons, all the concepts I'd tried to teach him years ago. Why didn't I listen to this before? He asked, shaking his head. Because you weren't ready, I said simply. You had to learn the hard way that shortcuts and schemes don't work. Daniel looked thoughtful. I'm grateful it was Dad's mistake and not mine. Use it as a lesson, I said. Learn from his errors so you don't repeat them. He nodded seriously. I will. As he left that afternoon, he hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, Mom, for how you handled everything. Those words healed something I didn't even know was still broken. Because respect, once lost and then regained, means everything. Vincent and I were gardening one Sunday afternoon when he said something unexpected. I've been thinking about retiring early. I looked up from the tomato plants. Really? I've been working 2 jobs for almost 2 years now. We're financially stable. Our debts are paid. He wiped doubt from his hands. I think I'd rather have time than money at this point. I considered that carefully. The Vincent I'd married would never have said that. Money and status had always driven him. But the man standing before me now was different. Humbled. Changed. Genuine. What would you do with your time? I asked. Spend it with you, he said simply. Travel. Garden. Actually enjoy life instead of chasing the next big thing. I smiled. I think I'd like that. Vincent pulled me close. I wasted a lot of years chasing things that didn't matter, he said. I don't want to waste any more. That evening we sat on the porch watching fireflies. Do you remember when Daniel said we didn't need your advice? Vincent asked quietly. Yes. I'm the one who convinced him to say that. I'd suspected as much. I know. I'm sorry, he said. I was intimidated by your competence. So I tried to sideline you. And almost destroyed everything in the process, I added gently. Vincent nodded. I'll never make that mistake again. I believed him, because the man beside me now wasn't the same person who'd forged my signature. He'd been broken down and rebuilt. And the rebuilt version was so much better. 3 years after the crisis, Sophia asked me to help her with something important. Mom, I'm buying my first house. My heart swelled with pride. That's wonderful. I want you to review everything before I sign anything. The mortgage terms, the inspection report, all of it. She handed me a thick folder. I don't want to make the mistakes Dad made. I hugged her. I'm proud of you for asking. We spent the evening going through every document. The mortgage terms were solid. Interest rate was competitive. Her down payment was responsible. You've done this exactly right, I told her. Sophia beamed. I learned from the best. Later, as she was leaving, she paused. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you forgive Dad, after everything he did? I thought about that question carefully. Because he genuinely changed, I said finally. Not just his actions, but his heart. And if he hadn't changed, then I wouldn't have, I said honestly. Sophia nodded slowly. Thank you for showing us what real strength looks like. After she left, I sat thinking about her words. Strength. For so long I'd thought strength meant managing everything quietly, never complaining, never demanding respect. But I'd learned something different. Real strength was knowing when to say no, when to demand transparency, when to refuse to be used, and sometimes when to offer grace to someone who'd earned it. 5 years after everything began, Warren called me one last time. Mrs. Harper, I wanted to let you know the fraud case has completely concluded. I thought it was finished years ago. The criminal case was, but there was a civil component. Additional assets were recovered. He named a figure.
$28,000. That's significant, I said, stunned. It's being distributed among all the victims. Your family will receive approximately $3,000. $3,000 we never expected. Thank you for everything, Warren, I said. You could have processed that loan without questioning it. I'm glad I didn't, he replied. After we hung up, I told Vincent the news. He looked at me seriously. What should we do with it? The old Vincent would have had a dozen investment ideas. But this Vincent was asking my opinion. Respecting my judgment. Emergency fund, I said. Something we never have to touch unless absolutely necessary. Vincent nodded. Perfect. That evening we told Daniel and Sophia about the unexpected money. That's amazing, Sophia said. Daniel grinned. Mom's financial wisdom strikes again. I laughed. I just refused to sign a fraudulent loan. No, Vincent said quietly. You protected this family when no one else would. Including me. He looked around at our children. Your mother saved us. Never forget that. The respect in his voice was real. Hard-earned. And worth every difficult moment we'd survived. Today, 7 years after Daniel told me the family didn't need my advice, I sat on the porch watching the sunset. Our family had completely transformed. Vincent retired last year. We travel together now, exploring places we'd only dreamed about before. Daniel manages his finances expertly and regularly asks my advice on investment decisions. Sophia bought her house and is building equity responsibly. And our family financial meetings continue monthly. Everyone shares openly. No secrets. Complete transparency. The loan crisis that almost destroyed us became the foundation of something stronger. Because sometimes you have to nearly lose everything to understand what truly matters. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Mom, I'm teaching my son about money today. Using the lessons you taught me. Thank you for never giving up on us. I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. The lesson I'd learned was simple but profound. Being undervalued doesn't mean you're worthless. Being dismissed doesn't mean you're unnecessary. Sometimes the quiet strength that holds a family together is the most powerful force of all. And when that strength finally stands up and says no more, everything changes. Vincent came outside and sat beside me. What are you thinking about? He asked. How far we've come, I said. He took my hand. We wouldn't be here without you. I leaned against him, grateful for the journey. The betrayal had been devastating. But the rebuilding had been beautiful. And the family we'd become was worth every painful step.